Welcome to another edition of We Need to Talk About Movies, brought to you by BanterFlix.com. And now, here's your host, Jim McClean.
Hello. Yes, I am indeed your host, Jim McClean, Editor-in-Chief of the BanterFlix Movie Review website. Welcome to the latest episode of our podcast, We Need to Talk About Movies. If this is your first time checking out this pod, then welcome to the madness. Hopefully you'll enjoy what you listen to and subscribe to make sure you never miss another episode. If you've been listening to us for a while, then thank you for continuing to check in. This episode is the third part of our Disney retrospective that has been curated by BanterFlix's resident Disney queen, local writer Victoria Brown. On this episode, we're going to be talking about the many adventures of Winnie the Pooh from 1977. I absolutely love this film. It may come across, listeners, just a little bit during this recording, but it's a lot of fun. It's the third episode, as I've said. We've already looked back at the Aristocats and Robin Hood. On this episode, I'm joined by Victoria Brown. Of course, she has curated this series, and one half of the BanterFlix Sleuth Sisters. That is our very own Deputy-Editor Therese Rea. She's not talking about serial killers on this pod. She's talking about Winnie the Pooh. So it's a lot of fun, and just before we get into this week's episode, if you will allow me, listeners, I'm going to very quickly sell our wares. If you haven't listened to us before, you want to find previous episodes of this podcast, head over to our website, www.banterflix.com, and there you'll not only find the back catalogue of this podcast, but also our TV show on NBTV, an array of features and reviews, a glut of trailers, movie news, bits of everything. And I would say sign up to our newsletter to make sure you're not missing out on stuff, because as we now apparently are starting to gear up to come out of lockdown, we will hopefully be able to start planning some film screenings and events in the near future. So if you're on our newsletter, you'll make sure you never miss out any of that info. You also might want to head over to our Patreon page. We have a couple of different tiers, each come with their own array of goodies. All of our tiers come with exclusive access to a few podcasts that are only for Patreons. We have the BanterFlix Ramble and our monthly quiz. We're gearing up to record the monthly quiz for February. The last one was a lot of fun. It was won by, sadly not me, but our deputy editor, Joe McElroy. And so hopefully second time round I'll be a bit more lucky. And if you're one of our Patreons, you can get to watch it, listen to it, whichever way you prefer. And we're actually looking into the possibility of getting some of our Patreons on to the monthly quiz. So thank you to the likes of Andy, Jim, Robert, Brian, and thank you for supporting us. So that's enough of me, I think, trying to sell BanterFlix wares. Let's get on and get stuck into this week's podcast.
Now, when Pooh heard his poo-coo clock, he knew it was time for something. But he was a bear of very little brain. So when he thought in the most thoughtful way he could think.
I haven't thought of anything, have you? No, neither have I. Think. Oh, yes, time for my stoutness exercise. Up, down, up. When I up, down, touch the ground, it puts me in the mood. Up, down, touch the ground, in the mood for food. I am stout round, and I have found, speaking poundage-wise, I improve my appetite when I exercise.
So that's a clip of the many adventures of Winnie the Pooh as we continue our Disney retrospective. We Need to Talk About Disney is the name of this podcast. And joining me now in our digital 100-acre woods, we're having a 3-hero party. A hero party for 3. I'm joined by Victoria Brown, our resident Disney Queen.
Hi.
And the lovely, lovely one half of the BanterFlix Sleuth sisters, that is Therese Rea.
Hi, Jim. Hi, Victoria.
We're all here. We're having our hero party. We're going to talk about probably, you can sense it, listeners. You can sense it, viewers. We've done, this is our fourth, Victoria, in this third?
Third? Third.
Third. So we've done Robin Hood. We've done the Aristocats. And that would be a lovely opportunity if I had to be able to put a cat filter on. But I can't.
You are not a cat.
I'm not a cat. And by the time this podcast goes out, that joke will have aged terribly. Everybody will have done that joke. I'm trying to think. I think, is there not another one? No, the Aristocats. We have Robin Hood. So yes, this is our third part of the Disney retrospective. And this is The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh from 1977. And probably my favorite one we've talked about to date. And probably one of my favorite Disney movies. It's not like number one. Okay, it's not Cars 2. It's not Cars 2, right? It's not my favorite Disney movie, but this is up there, people. So forget Robin Hood, forget the Aristocats. It's The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. So Victoria, tell our listeners and our viewers, if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, what this is all about.
The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh is the 22nd Disney feature film. It follows Winnie the Pooh, Piglet, Tigger, Eeyore, Rabbit, Owl, Kangaroo, and Roo. That joke took me way too long. I only realised a couple of years ago. On their adventures in the 100-acre wood with Christopher Robin, and it's an adorable little film, and I love it.
Yeah, I love this. I've put my cards on the table. You know, you were all like excited to talk about Robin Hood and the Aristocats. Screw them. They can do whatever they want. We are in 100-acre woods, and I am just going to enjoy this. Therese, you know, this is your first time on the We Need to Talk About Disney. It's a definite departure from all your zodiac theories and everything like this. So this is a nice kind of little palate cleanser for you. You're in the safe place that is Disney. There are no serial killers in Disney that I'm aware of. Maybe, well, Basil the Great Mouse Detective is probably about as close as you're going to get.
It's pretty bad, yeah. I was also going to say Rasputin, but Anastasia isn't a Disney film, so no, can't really. But yeah, like, I do love Disney as well. Like, I go from one spectrum to the other. And a palate cleanser is something that I definitely need. And Winnie the Pooh, the stories and the adventures were really big for me and my sister when we were kids. And, you know, you were showing your books that you had before we came on. Me and my sister had all the books. We had all the videotapes. Anytime the show used to come on the Disney Channel in the very early days, every episode was recorded, even though there was probably like 10 episodes and you knew every single one. And I don't know I don't know what sort of was the real sort of draw for me and my sister to really love it. But I think it's the story and the animation, while it being, you know, back then in the 70s was still very early on for Disney. It's still so good, and the colours and the schemes and things like that. And I would say as well, Winnie the Pooh is like a real cult icon. Like, even if you've never seen this film or any of the films, any of the shows, even read a book, you know, if you were showing a picture of Piglet or Winnie the Pooh, people would know who it was. So yeah, he's quite the celeb.
Yeah, definitely. Watching this, I hadn't watched this in a long time, and when we had just finished recording our Robin Hood episode for the second time, when I knew we were going to be talking about Winnie the Pooh, I kind of went and watched it then. So it was probably late 2020, just kind of pre-Christmas. And of all the Disney films we've done to date, and even some of the few that I've just kind of watched on my own accord, this was just like, as soon as it was on, instant feedback. I can just remember memory loop right back to when I was younger watching this. I talked about the last time about when we watched Robin Hood. I'd kind of completely forgotten Robin Hood's voice and how, hello, I'm Robin Hood. I'm so terribly posh. I'd forgotten about that. But every single voice in this was just like, yeah, you know, you've got Sterling Holloway as Winnie the Pooh. It's just every voice I just remember instantly. And I could remember the page turning, everything. It's just, I think we've talked about this a lot so far, Victoria. And I haven't even asked you, your general thoughts on this. Therese went off on one. I'm going off on one. But I would say this, we've talked about this quite a bit on any of the Disney films we've talked about so far, about being great gateway drugs into Disney. This is the crack cocaine of Disney. This is just if you want to take this, I don't know how you couldn't like this. I really don't. But, Therese has been really positive. I've been positive. Victoria, where does this rank for you in your love of all things Disney?
I love this film as well. We watched it a lot as kids. My wee sister, Charlotte, was and still is obsessed with tigers, so we had so many Tigger toys in our house. She knew the wonderful thing about Tiggers off by heart.
Tigger's are made of rubber. Oh, the one thing about Tigger.
Made of springs.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, we watched this. We watched Piglet's Big Movie, Pooh's Grand Adventure, the Heffalump movie. We watched them all. We were obsessed in our house. We didn't have any of the original books, but we had the ones that you mentioned before we were recording, where it's like the wee thin ones that are just like the animated. We had a whole collection of those, and we had loads of Winnie the Pooh ones. Oh, it's such a cute wee film, and it's so funny. It makes me laugh every time I put it on, and Piglet is just the cutest wee thing ever.
Yeah, even though he's a bit of an old moan and he's a bit timid, even I kind of go with his great big scarf. I kind of go, "Aw, Piglet." But yeah, as I said, putting this on, I had instant kind of flashbacks to watching this when I was younger, more so than any of the two films we've talked about before. Those were films I had a fondness for, but it wasn't a case of something that I just adored. And I think, like Therese was saying, and you've said, Victoria, Winnie the Pooh was a big part of my childhood. It was a big part. I had a Winnie the Pooh doll. I'm pretty certain I had a Tigger doll. We have a cat now, and of course, the cat's Ginger. The cat's Ginger, so of course he's called Tigger, although he's more Dennis the Menace than Tigger. He's definitely not as cutesy. But yes, it's lovely. And I know that we've talked about this in the previous two films, Victoria. This kind of comes, I think you'll know this better than me as our resident Disney queen. There's elements of this that are hand-drawn. I think it's the backgrounds, are done. They're hand-drawn to give it that look.
Yeah.
But it's still kind of this new phase of Disney that we saw where it was kind of like that, kind of like the panel. And I forget, the term exactly what it was, but you can still see it's similar. Yes, that's the one. I think it's still similar because I think there's some stuff I think from the Jungle Book I think is reused. This is from IMDb trivia. It's not. I noticed it. It's not as I don't think this is as noticeable as in not Jungle Book, as it was with Robin Hood, where you can see where they've reused footage. And this, if I'm right, is one of the last real kind of pet projects. I know he had passed away by this stage, but this was a real pet project for Walt Disney.
Yeah, he really loved the story. And unfortunately, he died before anything could be kind of made into a bigger narrative. That's why it feels so episodic. It was a bunch of featurettes that had been previously made that they kind of smooshed together and kind of made a narrative out of. That's where the whole book idea came from, but this was something that Walt Disney was really passionate about. Yeah,
because I think isn't his favourite sequence, I think it's everybody's favourite sequence, when poor Winnie gets his bum stuck in, I'm going to choose my words really carefully here, in Rabbit's Hole. That's not really kind of very child-friendly, but that's the only way I can say it. He gets his bum stuck in Rabbit's Hole. There we go. Children, ask your parents why Victoria and Therese are giggling at that. But yeah, I just love Winnie the Pooh. I just love the way you get a sense that the animators on this just adored the characters as much as we do. Just watching, they had as much fun animating them as we had watching. Just the way when Winnie, he's, I have that face. We were talking today. My lovely wife and I were kind of saying, I think my wife's spirit animal is Winnie the Pooh. Just in breakfast time, whenever she's getting ready for breakfast. we have our little dance, we put our little hat on, and even just when he's in bed, I just think it's just a lovely, from every piece of this. It's just that time whenever I think just everything from top to bottom is all on the same page, and it just works so well, so well. I haven't really give you a question. I've kind of said, but it is episodic, and you get a sense that it is just, you know, like, I think it's 6 stories, 5-6 stories cobbled together with the idea of the book. You don't really mind, because I mean, I'm looking at my A.A. Milne book here, Winnie the Pooh, illustrated by E.H. Shepard. Now, this is not the Disneyfied version. This is the original. Well, not the original. Not like it would be worth thousands of pounds, and I would not be sitting here holding it with all the dents and a glass of wine beside me. But no, it does, because I mean, looking at this, you know, it goes through. There's all loads of different stories, so it matches the book. I have no issue with that at all, because sometimes when you see something, it feels like something that's been shooshed in and mushed to be made into a feature. I have no issue with that. And it's when you listen to the voices, as I said, are on, they're perfect, but it's such a quintessential Disney lineup of voices, from the narrator, from everybody. I think the narrator for this, I do forget his name. Apologies, I'll get it up in a second when I get IMDb in front of me. But I think this was his final performance. But he's in like the Sword of the Stone and all that kind of stuff. It's just a very kind of, it's Disney getting the best involved on this project. Really good voice actors. As I say, having Sterling Holloway as the voice of Winnie the Pooh, I can't think of anybody else as the voice of Winnie the Pooh. And I'm not sure, was he in the later, because you had to clarify, Victoria, which Winnie the Pooh movie have you all watched? Just we're on the right wavelength here. I'm not sure. It could be a case, you know, that different people can just do really good imitations, but I think of Sterling Holloway as Pooh, and I can't remember the name of the actor whose voice is Tigger, but Tigger,
Paul something, I think it is.
Paul Winchell.
Oh, Tigger. And I'd forgot the little kind of growl, the little kind of purr that he does when he talks.
Yeah.
I just kind of I'd forgotten. You know, I knew the song and the kind of the animation, the way he moves, but I'd forgot about the little growl that he does. It's a film. As I say, it's a perfect gateway into Disney, and I suppose then that opens it out. Like, where would you rate this? I know you kind of touched on that, Victoria. Where would you rate that for you in the grand scheme of Disney's pretty impressive back catalogue?
I mean, it wouldn't be top 10, but it would definitely be top 20. Like, I really did watch it constantly as a kid.
That's what
like,
you say about all the Disney films we've talked about.
I know, but like, I love them all, though. That's the problem.
You've got a really, really long top 20.
Yeah, it's just like 15 part 2, 15 part 3.
Yeah.
The bit with where Winnie gets stuck in Rabbit's hole, the way Rabbit like puts like the wee frame on his bum, and then he frames like the wee antlers and all. It reminds me so much of my granny for some reason. Just Rabbit's mannerisms and everything. Like, that's exactly what my granny would do in that situation. So it just makes me laugh.
I wouldn't like to think that your granny would be in that situation.
No,
you know,
you don't know her.
I know. Well, you know, we know that your mum, you know, walks around your house singing Disney songs. We know this. So, you know, what your granny decides is pieces of art. That's all okay. But Therese, for you, you know, where are you putting this? Are you putting this in your long top 20, or where does this rate for you in the grand scheme of a very impressive back catalogue that Disney have?
I would say top 10. I wouldn't be able to pinpoint a rating at the minute, but like, me and Grace watched it religiously, and I remember like one of I think it was Grace's like 10th birthday. It was like one of her big double-digit birthdays, and we went to Dublin Road Movie House, RIP, and seen Piglet's big movie. And I think it was like, now I cry, you know this, Jim, I cry at all films, but I think this was one of the first films that like I fully cried my eyes out in the cinema and was like sobbing just whenever Piglet goes away and he just feels that nobody wants him and he's so alone. And I don't know why at the time, like, I felt like going, oh, I really feel like that as well, because I was still a child myself, so I don't understand. But I think all of the characters, as you were saying, Victoria, in a strange way, like, you have like a family, or like a familiar sort of need for them, or for the character. Like, they've always been there.
Yeah.
And actually, coming back to your point, Jim, about the people who made the film, 100% you can sense that they were so happy. But even in the songs, like the Sherman Brothers, who are legends in Disney, created the songs in this, and whenever you listen to them, even like the Heffalump and the Wurzel song, which is supposed to be sort of like not spooky but like a wee bit scary, like, it's still joyous and happy. And the songs as well as the characters are so iconic. Like, again, if you've never seen Winnie the Pooh, you know the song Winnie the Pooh, like, it's just ingrained in Disney history. And I'm actually grateful that it's one of the few that hasn't really been touched in the past couple of years, because I don't think it needs to be. I know we did have Christopher Robin, and the other one, what was the other one?
Goodbye, Christopher Robin is one
which I suppose was Disney sort of them branching out the story of A.A. Milne, and then up with Christopher Robin himself, which, really, to be honest, no offense, Christopher, but we didn't need to know about your life.
No, I agree.
Oh, now, you see, now here's the thing that I would disagree, because I really like. There's a weird thing. I really like Goodbye, Christopher Robin, but I don't like A.A. Milne and Margot Robbie's character, and I really dislike them in that film, and kind of how they kind of, I think more so Margot Robbie's character, than it kind of jumped on that bandwagon of stardom and that and fame when those books became famous. But I think, having watched that, it does make me, when I then look at this, makes me think about it that little bit differently. To an extent, like, I mean, I did get a lump in my throat. Well, I mean, I do love it anyway, but the kind of the final story, okay, they don't go the full hog, and they don't go the full kind of attempt to break our little hearts like Pixar did with Toy Story 3, but they don't bring I think it's Goodbye, Christopher Robin, I think, is the last story, where they talks about Christopher Robin's getting older, and he's not going to be there to play with Winnie the Pooh. And I don't have that book with me here, because I will read from the book later on. That breaks my heart. Whenever I remember, I think it was on the Mark Kermode and Simon Mayo, when Toy Story 3 came out, they read that on air, and Simon Mayo broke down reading it. It is a tough, and it is a sad thing. I did get a lump in my throat watching it back when I watched it last year. Maybe that's just because of the doom and gloom of COVID. Maybe that's just that thing. But it is sad. But I think watching Goodbye, Christopher Robin, I think does put, I think, an added little kind of an extra. I don't like the Ewan McGregor one that they did. I think that's Disney.
I hated that.
It just didn't work for me, because kind of the fact is, like, are they real? Are they not real? It just didn't work. I like Goodbye, Christopher Robin, but I don't know. Clearly, Therese, you weren't fussed, and clearly by the way you reacted, Victoria, you weren't a fan either.
No, they both seemed a bit forgettable to me. Like, I was kind of like, what's the point? It felt a bit like a cash grab. Like, I wish there had been a bit more soul in them.
Okay, I do disagree. I really disagree. I think that film does, because A.A. Milne, I think when you put in the context of who he was and kind of the difficulties he had, I think that book, or that film, I think really does add a level of sadness that then when you're watching this, which is so joyous and wonderful, and Walt Disney clearly loved the characters of Winnie the Pooh. I think, if I'm right, again, you might correct me, Victoria, he was a massive fan, but when he first wanted to make this, Winnie the Pooh wasn't big in America. It wasn't big enough.
Yeah, so it was a very like British thing. He wasn't sure it would bring in enough money, and the studio wasn't in a position at the time to take a risk. But obviously, eventually, they got to that point. Now, like Therese said, like Winnie the Pooh's an icon.
Yeah, they took their time. Okay, sadly, Walt Disney passed away before the film was finally released. But you get a sense, and you know that clearly the Disney movie, and when Disney got on board, you know that's going to send anything through the kind of it's going to go into popular culture. It's just stuff. And again, I couldn't help thinking about Goodbye Christopher Robin today, just with all the stuff that you wouldn't have realized when you were younger. And I know I definitely didn't realize, like the stuff with Piglet and Piglet's house, and it was owned by his grandfather or his great-grandfather, and it was Trespassers Will, short for Trespassers William. His grandmother used to just call him TW. That all went over my head when I was younger.
That's it.
And even just all the stuff that's kind of going on, the way things are spelt, you know, carrots, cabbage,
Carrots.
thoughtful place. I had forgotten, because I remember used to have a joke with my parents, or my mum would say, "Oh, you go into your thoughtful place," and I had forgot from watching. Oh, that's from Winnie the Pooh. And of course, I would have had to stuff. I don't think I'm as much fluff up there in the old noggin as Winnie, but I don't think I had to go for the full like think. But it's just a joy of a film. You know, it's a hard podcast when we all agree, at least in the last two, when Victoria, you were being really enthusiastic and I was being kind of going, is it though? Is it really that good?
Yeah.
Is it that amazing? You know, at least this time, unfortunately for our listeners, everyone's kind of going, here, we're all on the same wavelength and we all just love this.
Come on back to looking at the film as an adult. And I obviously that this is all speculation whenever you Google it and stuff, but how, you know, there's a lot going around how each of the characters display that they're like basically examples of different mental illnesses, and how, you know, in our mind these characters are they're Christopher Robin's imaginary friends. We all know that. As much as I would love Winnie the Pooh to just be real and I could just scoop him up and put him in my pocket, you can't do it. But whenever I was researching earlier, there's so much things coming up of recent. There was a few BuzzFeed articles, but they're probably a load of shite. But you know, different things that, you know, Eeyore's like a metaphor for depression, and Piglet anxiety, Kanga social anxiety, Roo displays symptoms of being on the spectrum, and sort of putting those questions out. And I would also say maybe using the characters as an example for young kids, maybe of recently, especially with everything going on, using them as examples of certain more adult feelings that regardless of COVID, some people would have to deal with, but with lockdown and COVID going on, it's been, you know, more heightened. It's been covered in Inside Out with the characters. You know, I've seen things that schools and therapists are using those characters, but when you also see and reflect on the earlier films, you know, Winnie the Pooh could be used in the same way. Not that you'd want to like tarnish or make anything sad about Winnie the Pooh, but you know, whenever you sort of take like an adult spin on things, it opens up a conversation that maybe originally Disney wouldn't have thought was an interpretation, or they did and they just sort of slipped it in there and didn't tell anybody.
Whereas it's just a nice story about a young boy and his imaginary friends. How dare you psychoanalyze Winnie the Pooh? I jest, of course. No, of course it is. And you think about it again and come back to that point, and maybe I'm putting too much of Goodbye Christopher Robin into this, but you get a sense, you know, A.A. Milne was someone who was damaged by war.
Yeah, PTSD.
He was someone, and, you know, through writing about, you know, through this writing, you know, if you follow Goodbye Christopher Robin and generally kind of what you find, this was a way for him to reconnect back with his child. And, you know, probably more so on A.A. Milne's side, I would say there's a lot of that there and a lot more subtext, more so than Disney. I like you mentioned Inside Out, which is a film I absolutely love. You know, I can't get through it without blubbing. You know, it was, you know, blub number 3, 4, 5 before Christmas when I watched it. And every time I prime myself going, I know it's coming. Take her to the moon. Oh no, I'm gone. But
bing bong, bing bong.
Don't. Don't.
Love
You
You know-
set him off now.
You know, Joanna Leach, I remember from the Strand Arts Centre, like 3 weeks after Inside Out was released, she sent me a little photo of Bing Bong with the subtext, with a kind of written on it, "Take her to the moon." And I was like, no,
Oh God.
that's just cruel. But no, we're not here to listen to me cry about Inside Out. But no, I would say there's probably a sense of that, but I think that's more in the writing of A.M. Milne rather than Walt Disney. I'm not that I'm kind of saying that BuzzFeed and stuff is wrong, but I think something like Inside Out is, I think, much clearer in
Yeah.
what it's trying to do. I don't know. I mean, what I just love about this, because one of the things I was looking at my little scribbly notes that I've written down, what I love about it, I think a child now, you always kind of go, oh, would a younger viewer today still enjoy Winnie the Pooh? And it's slapstick, it's silly, there's just this wonderful sense of silliness to it that I think kids love. And I still think, unless I am completely out of touch with the world, and if so, I am terrified at that thought, I think there's just a timeless quality to it. That slapstick, that silliness, I'm still, I'm nearly 40. I'm laughing at it. Ladies, I'm not going to say your ages. Victoria's 60, Therese 73, and you still find
a
it
day
funny.
over 71.
You still find it funny. You still laugh, and I think younger viewers now will still get humor from this. I think there's a more timeless quality to this, dare I say it, than even Robin Hood and the Aristocats so far. And I know, and that's not me dissing on the previous two films. It comes back, and I was thinking about this. It was something that Kenneth Branagh said when he made the live action version of Cinderella. He kind of said, look, if you make this postmodern, which Disney was doing with all their adaptations, their live action, he said, it's going to age really quickly and it's going to be off its time. But I think if you make something that is just kind of quintessentially, okay, and it's not the right term, but clinging to the source material like a wet blanket. But I think that, and it's sometimes I say that's a bad thing. Usually I say that's a bad thing, but I think here it's just Disney literally bringing those pages to life, and I think that's why there's just a general timeless quality about it. Generally,
just adding color to A. Milne's words, really.
The words are beautiful. Like, what is it? A small smackerel of honey, or what's it he says? Small smackerel of honey. And it's like, I don't want to eat it. I just want to taste. Makes me laugh every time.
Like having rumblies in your tumblies. Like I have a rumbly in my tumbly every time I wake up in the morning. It's like
I'm having a rumbly in my tumbly right now.
Yeah, like I'm away now. I'm not as big a fan of honey, but as you said earlier with Amber, I'm the exact same. Like, I go in just being delighted to know that you're going to get fed. And even whenever you are eating, I am a real, like, singer and smiler whenever I have something, like, really nice to eat. And it does always bring me back to Winnie the Pooh. It's like, this is lovely. Like, if I'm eating, like, a really nice chocolate bar or, like, a good cup of tea, I'd be like, I know it gets on people's nerves, but
I'll have what she's having. But I'm intrigued by when you're saying they're kind of like you sing. So I mean, because I couldn't say, like, if I'm eating them happy, it's like kind of going like I wouldn't go that far, right? I wouldn't go that far. But yeah, everyone, it's Pancake Tuesday coming up soon by the time we record. I know this podcast will be out after that, but Pancake Tuesday. Oh yeah, I'm going to be sitting there like Winnie the Pooh in the place up with my little kind of, I'm about to get pancakes dance.
You'll be like a piglet in shit, just rolling about.
Here's a question though. Do any of you actually like honey?
I do, but not the way Pooh does, but
no.
There's a bit that always makes me laugh where he's stuck in like the beehive and the narrator's trying to like turn the page and Pooh's like, I'm not done.
It's wee bits like that with the conversation between the narrator and Winnie the Pooh, sort of breaking that fourth wall so early on as well is really good. Like those sort of connections, kind of like normally they would take if it was done wrong, it would take you out of the story, whereas it just adds to it and it adds to the comedy as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a joke that I wasn't aware of as a kid the gopher isn't in the book, and in the film they constantly refer to the fact that he's not in the book.
Do
But
they?
I thought he meant like I'm not in like the yellow pages. Like I'm not in like the book that you call
I
to bring
didn't
in.
pick
Like,
that up.
I only know because there's a podcast I listened to called Disorder, and they mentioned it, and I was like, oh my god, right enough. So when I was watching it today, I kept an eye out for it, and he mentions it almost every time. And even Winnie the Pooh calls attention to it. It's so meta and it's so funny. And like you said, it just adds to the quirkiness and the fun of it. Because like
How
you said,
good-
if they did it wrong, it could have been so bad.
How good is the voice for the gopher, though? It's just every voice is perfect, and they knew exactly. I think a lot. I'm looking here at IMDb, and a lot of the actors that they have here, the voice actors, I should say, they are all kind of people that have worked with Disney. They are all seasoned voice actors. You know, the narrator, as I said, Sebastian Cabot, if I'm saying that right. You know, he's done The Jungle Book, he's done The Sword and the Stone. He's the narrator, as I said earlier on, in The Sword and the Stone. It's all just perfect. I think this was something, and maybe from listening to your podcast and your own experience, Victoria, maybe there was a sense with this, for being something that Walt Disney was so passionate about, this feels like a real, as much as this is a tribute to Mill and his work on Winnie the Pooh, this feels like a real love letter to Walt Disney and something that he clearly had a passion for.
Yeah, like there's something about Winnie the Pooh that's just so different from Robin Hood and the Aristocats, or something so like quintessentially Disney about it. And I think part of it is that timelessness. Like there's certain jokes in Robin Hood that do date it. Like they're still funny, but like it's firmly placed in the 70s, whereas this like I have friends who watch Winnie the Pooh with their young kids now, and they're laughing along with their kids. It's just, yeah, something very like when you think of Disney, Winnie the Pooh is one of the first things that comes to mind.
That reassures me, because I have this fear that when eventually I have children, and when they go, let's watch Winnie the Pooh, they're like, no, we don't want to watch that. We're going to watch Power Rangers and all that cool stuff that the kids are still down with these days. So no, that reassures. I can't. I come back to this point. I don't know why anybody couldn't like Winnie the Pooh, and we haven't even talked about it. Like even just the live action opening sequence of the slow pan round Christopher Robin's bedroom. It's lovely.
So lovely.
It's lovely, and it's, you know, Disney do that. You know, they have that kind of that classic. I've talked about this before on the Jungle Book. I know they've definitely done it, and Sleeping Beauty. They used to have that opening and closing of the book, and I don't think Robin Hood and I don't think the Aristocats do that. I could be wrong. I know with Robin Hood they have like the opening sequence and there's the song and the animated going on, and the Aristocats they have the kind of slow pan with that song of the Aristocats. But this is just kind of coming back to that kind of that classic, that opening and closing, and that always puts a smile on my face whenever they remade the Jungle Book, the live action version, and then they closed on that. Like, I'm not ashamed to admit, I talked about in this podcast how many times I cry. I've already mentioned I cried at this, I cried at Inside Out. That actually made me cry. That's how much of a kind of emotional wreck I am, viewers and listeners. You know, just when something tugs on my nostalgia, and it's just whenever in the Jungle Book, Jon Favreau's version, whenever they're all sitting up in the tree and it kind of goes to pencil art and it closes to the book, and I just kind of went, right, boom, you've got me in the feels, John. I'm going to have a little cry here. Hey, you know, I just cry a lot. What I will say though, my only niggle, and it's not Victoria, it's not a Jim McClean kind of, why does the horse want to be
an adult niggle?
It's not an adult niggle, but it's talking about the one thing I will say, and I mentioned earlier about all the voices just being like, yep, that's how I remember it. That's how I remember it. The one caveat to that is I forgot how posh Christopher Robin is. Hello, I'm going to be Robin Hood one day. I'm so posh. Hello, oh yes, I'm going to boarding school now. Yeah. Goodbye, Pooh.
Yeah. It's like, Pooh, will you remember me when I go to school? And you're like, oh, shut, like nobody talks like that.
But if he was from Belfast, Therese, would we all love him though? Hermione.
Yeah.
Especially when I go to school.
I'm away to school. I might bunk off and we can play in the forest for a wee bit. Yo, I heard you got stuck in Rabbit's Hole. Yo. But yeah, That's the one thing I had completely forgotten how posh Christopher Robin is.
And it might have been something that was sort of hard for kids in America to kind of take serious. Like, that probably did them set a precedent that, like, all English kids spoke like that. And they were all very enunciated and spoke like this. And I think with the gopher as well, I think I read something that because this is such like such an English story and everything about it is so English, and even the way Winnie the Pooh talks and Piglet and Eeyore, I can't even believe that I haven't spoke about Eeyore, who's my ultimate love of my life. But they put the gopher in, obviously he wasn't in the books, as to have like an all-American guy type character. But yet, as you said, Victoria, they spent the whole time basically taking the piss out of him. So I don't know if that was to have that sort of connection with the US or not.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's class.
But maybe that could be the fact that to add to that level of the fact that he just doesn't fit in. Everybody else is British. We've got a Britishy kind of accent going on to an extent. And then you have Gopher, who's kind of very Americanized. Maybe that's just another meta level of Winnie the Pooh. Mind blown. It's like Inception. Whose dream are we in now? I don't know what's going on. You know,
we could all go down rabbit's hole with this, but I think would be stuck forever.
I don't know if it all fit.
No,
I don't know if it all fit. But anything at all niggly for you? Any adult niggles, Victoria? You know, it's not like me kind of going, why does a horse want to be a hat? Where's the mouse going to take the money? What does she do? I had no issues with that, because maybe it's because it sounds like, oh, they're just toys. They're imaginary friends. I have no issues. I know my lovely wife did want to know, why would Rabbit want to like lie up against Winnie the Pooh's bum at night when he's sleeping, because surely he would, you know, pass wind. And I was like, oh, but he's a toy. Toys don't pass wind. But then yet when he's tummy rumbles, so
makes quite a large noise, yeah, and a loud noise. I meant to say, not large.
Yeah. So that's kind of like, that's the only kind of adult kind of niggle. It's of all the other films we've watched, and I've kind of said, like, why would a mouse need that big a coin? Where's she going to bank that? How's she going to go out and do her shopping? When Amber mentioned that, surely Winnie the Pooh would pass wind. Why would you do that? It's like, shut up, he's just a toy. Shut up. Just watch the lovely cartoon. I got very defensive. That's all I can say. You know, maybe, you know, you're trampling on my childhood memories here, because I'm a hypocrite. And when people like Victoria go, I love this and I love that, I love Robin Hood, and you're like, no, come on, think about it. You know, come on, let's kind of get meta here. Let's get real, Victoria. But no, I won't tolerate anything bad. Anyway, normally I won't tolerate anything bad. Any niggles at all?
Not really. I felt a lot more sorry for Piglet when Eeyore finds Oil the house, and he's so like, I found a house, and Piglet's like, it's my house. Or when Rabbit wants to take Tigger out to the woods and lose him, so he basically loses his spirit and doesn't want to bounce anymore. I thought that was really sad.
Yeah,
I'd actually forgotten about that.
That did kind of that caught in the feels, because our Long Ears is it Long Ears or Long Face? I think it's Long Ears.
Long Ears.
Long Ears. He's an old bastard at that point, and you're just like, just let him bounce. Just let him just bounce. But no, because here's the thing, right? I'm going to adult this, right? Surely Piglet and Oil can coexist in that house, because Oil's going to be in the tree at the top and Piglet's going to be in the bottom.
Yeah. Right enough. See, again, you don't think of this when you're a kid.
I was kind of like going like, oh, that'll be the thing. It's like, yeah. And then like Piglet's a hero for giving up his house. That might as well be like someone kind of, could you imagine someone coming to your
like
front
squatters,
door?
Right?
Yeah. Like, just someone coming like, hello, I'm bringing these people and we think this is the perfect house. And you're like, yeah, but I live here. But this is the perfect house for them. You'll have to leave. And you're like, oh, all right, then. That's okay. I'll go have a wee hero party and a party for one and all that kind of stuff. No, surely, you know, you have to coexist. It's like Israel, Pakistan, not Israel, Pakistan. That doesn't work at all. It's like Israel, Palestine. You get in the bottom bit, and they can be in the top bit, and you can all just coexist. I'm sure Pakistan will get on with them as well. Anyway, say no more.
There was one adult niggle. Now that you say it,
hang on a minute. Here we go. Let me see if it annoys me. Right.
Not that bad. I don't know if it would actually work or not, but see when there's the big rainstorm and the flood and Piglet and Pooh are stuck in the water and Owl comes to tell them that a rescue party's on the way. Could Owl not have just scooped Piglet up and then gone back for Winnie the Pooh instead of sitting on the chair and just talking rubbish?
But then Winnie wouldn't be the hero.
I suppose it really annoyed me because Piglet could easily fit in Owl's talon claw things.
Yeah, but then you go down that kind of avenue, then you got to go to Lord of the Rings and go, why instead of doing all the walking, did you not just get the great big falcons and just go straight to Mount Doom? Just go straight there, get it done.
That's fair.
Because there'd be no story.
Because it's all about because you know why, Victoria? It's all about the journey. It's all about
the many adventures of Winnie the Pooh.
Mm-hmm. It's all about the journey and the time taken. It's not about how you got there. It's about the time taken. So yeah, Therese, are you gonna adult Winnie the Pooh for us?
Okay, I don't think I could. I don't think it would be fair to ruin it.
Go on.
The only thing really would be, imagine being Eeyore and having a nail stuck to your arse all the time. It would explain why you're so sad and so down.
He's such a lockdown mood, isn't he?
Yeah, he is the epitome of lockdown. All the lockdowns, I was going to say lockdown 1, but all of them. Specifically this winter one that is the worst and is affecting everybody. It feels, this lockdown is a metaphor for a nail constantly being stuck up our arses.
Yep. That's all I have to say.
That's all I have to say about that.
Are you gonna tell us now, Therese, that you're writing a BuzzFeed article all about this, and that's his high metaphor, and you'll just get paid the big bucks from BuzzFeed?
Yeah. I'll give you a slice each. Victoria, maybe I was going to say you a bit more, but Jim, give him a start. So Jim, a wee bit more, and you after for inviting me on the podcast.
That's fair.
But from here on in, I will be a BuzzFeed contributor, and make loads of money. And if you've any sort of other ideas, I would happily steal them, plagiarize them, and then give you a small percentage in return.
Would you not give anything to your fellow sleuth sister?
He's not involved in this, so I'll have to leave him out.
You heard it here first. That's all I can say.
He's still out looking for the Zodiac. It'll keep him busy for a couple of years.
Yeah, you just solve crimes together, but everything else is just every man and woman for themselves. That's the way it goes.
Me. Yeah.
So I don't really know what else there is to talk about. We've talked about just kind of under an hour. We've talked about this. I think more so than the previous. I think we're much more in agreement in this, and the fact that this is just lovely, and watch it. If you've never watched it, go watch it. Don't even get to the end of this podcast. Just run right now to your phone. Oh, I couldn't imagine watching Winnie the Pooh on my phone.
No.
Not even your iPad. Watch it on the biggest TV possible, and then go try some honey if you've never had some honey. I don't know. Or
get a wee cup of tea and a blanket and just put it right up and just listen to the Winnie the Pooh, and just enjoy and lift yourself out of this Eeyore lockdown.
Yeah, that's what we're calling it. Not lockdown 3. Not lockdown 3. It's the Eeyore lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
Does that then mean you're going to have the rabbit lockdown? You're going to have I probably went for a Winnie the Pooh lockdown in lockdown 1 or whatever it was called. I gained my winter weight early last year. That's where I went wrong. I peaked too soon with that kind of I can sit at home now, I need everything. So I went for the Winnie Pooh. I don't know. Maybe I went Piglet in the second one. Maybe I was kind of very, very aware, but probably Eeyore. And maybe the next one will be the Christopher Robin. Will you still love me, lockdown, when I go to school?
No. No. The next one is going to be the Tigger lockdown. And that's when we're eventually allowed out. And we're going to be bouncing off the walls.
I love it.
All over the show. Singing absolute nonsense. And love life. And do you know what? And we'll never leave Tigger lockdown because it's just going to be our life for the foreseeable.
Yeah, but what happens then when you get like Rabbit and they kind of going, you're not allowed to be Tigger anymore? And everyone's just kind of walking away. And you're like, oh, go on. Just let him bounce. Just let him bounce one more time. One more bounce. One more bounce.
When we get to that, we'll deal with that when we get to that stage. But for now, I do foresee a couple of months of Tigger lockdown. When it gets back to the summer, think about it. See if we got the same weather we had like Easter. We're still in lockdown. Flat out drinking in the garden. Absolutely I'm ready for it.
Yo to the max. Okay, so I thought I would finish this little pod with a little, not very much, but a little bit of A. Mills, Winnie the Pooh. But before we do, Victoria, what are we going to be talking about next on the next episode of We Need to Talk About Disney?
I believe it's The Rescuers, which is one I actually haven't seen.
What?
So I know. Do you know what it was? We didn't have a Disney Channel growing up because we didn't have Sky. But when we went to my nana's on a Saturday, she had Disney Channel. And we would normally leave her house at about 6 on a Saturday, and The Rescuers was always on at like 6 o'clock. So I've seen the start of it.
Darker.
I've seen the start of it about 1,000,000 times, but I've never seen it the whole way through. So I'm really excited.
So you've never even seen The Rescuers Down Under?
No.
Oh, Therese, if you think I've been bad, or Therese, Victoria, if you think I've been bad and unrelentingly upbeat and enthusiastic about Winnie the Pooh, just wait till you get me talking about The Rescuers. And another film that I did cry at when I was younger. I cried a lot. I just sat in a perpetual, just my parents.
You're just a very emotional person, Jim.
My parents just kind of sat round and they just kept tissues. And they're like, it's like, is it Bedazzled? Whatever it is. It's like when Brendan Fraser asked to be more emotional and he kind of looks up to the sun. He's like, it's a beautiful sun, just crying at every single day. Look at that sun, it's beautiful. That's what I was like. I just cried. But anyway, yes, so The Rescues, I'm very excited about that. That will be next month. So I'm not going to pick a whole story. I just was kind of picking this up and flicking through it. And I wanted to be sure because I wasn't in an emotional place. This ER lockdown has not got me that I could read Goodbye, Christopher Robin. But I just thought this made me laugh. This put a little smile on my face. So it's like, this is from Winnie the Pooh, illustrated by E.H. Shepard, and it's the story We Say Goodbye. Later on, when they had all said goodbye and thank you to Christopher Robin, Pooh and Piglet walked home, thoughtfully together in the golden evening, and for a long time they were silent. When you wake up in the morning, Pooh said to Piglet at last, what's the first thing you say to yourself? What's for breakfast? Said Pooh. What do you say, Piglet? I say, I wonder what's going to happen exciting today, said Piglet. Pooh nodded thoughtfully. It's the same thing, he said. And what did happen? Said Christopher Robin. When? Next morning? I don't know. Could you think and tell me and Pooh sometime? If you wanted it very much. Pooh does, says Christopher Robin. He gave a deep sigh, picked his bear up by the leg, and walked off to the door, trailing Winnie the Pooh behind him. At the door, he turned round and said, coming to see me have my bath? I might, I said. Was Pooh's pencil case any better than mine? It's just the same, I said. He nodded and went out, and in a moment, I heard Winnie the Pooh bump, 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 going up the stairs behind him. And there's a lovely little illustration there. So that's a little, I could have read more, but it's just lovely. So yes, so TTFN, and we will be back again with another podcast soon. But for now, thank you very much, Therese.
Thanks very much, Jim and Victoria, for having me.
And thank you very much, Victoria.
Thanks, Jim, Therese. It was really fun.
TTFN.
This has been We Need to Talk About Movies. Thanks for listening. For more information, visit BanterFlix.com. See you next time.